to from over the camera, we'll just still talk right here.
Thank you.
And if you get on a roll, I won't interrupt you, but if you get to a stopping point, we'll figure something to ask you.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, he's gonna play with his toys just a little bit now. I'll let him do that. Now, dadgummit, I'm gonna have to play a minute because your mic cord's all peeping out, and I don't want that. You know what I'm gonna do? Happy, you happy?
Yep.
Ellison, will you mind starting by telling us your name and the branch of service you were in World War II?
Right. Military name was Jesse E. Outen Jr. The Ellison had been dropped. That's the name I went under, Jesse.
They always called you by your first name.
No, the last name, Outen.
Oh, they called you Outen.
Yeah.
You by any chance remember your service number?
34, 64, 97, 54.
Well, I bet you do remember it, huh? By any chance, do you remember where you were, sir, when Pearl Harbor was bombed?
I was in Cheraw at a friend's house, and it came over the radio. And we didn't know, well, I didn't, never heard of Pearl Harbor. And that was the beginning.
Did you enlist, sir, or were you drafted?
I was enlisted.
Can you tell us about that?
The party that ran the draft board was S.O. Pegues. And we were all strutting up and down Market Street, uptown, on Sunday. I'd say around 2, 3, or 4 o'clock, somewhere during that time. And S.O. Pegues came walking down the street. And we were all crowded on the sidewalk, and he stopped and he looked at me and he says, I'm gonna get you next. So I was the next one called. It was 52 of us that left Cheraw at one time. And further along in the story, I'll get back to that 52.
Well, the 52, did y'all go to Columbia to get sworn in?
We went to Columbia to Fort Jackson
How did you get there?
in an old bus, ragged bus. And then we went for our physical. We had our physical, and then we were given 2 days to come back home and get things straight, and then report back to Fort Jackson, and then we were given our clothes, our uniform, shoes, and a complete wardrobe. And I think 3 pairs of underwear, 3 pairs of two pairs of pants, summer pants, and the regular OD wool pants. And from there, after the 2 days at home and back and picked up our supplies and all, we were put on a train and shipped to Camp Wheeler, Georgia. And when we arrived at Camp Wheeler, Georgia, we went through basic training. We were the first 18-year-olds to be drafted. We just set all kinds of records. The higher brass couldn't comprehend the way we broke records in all kinds of different calisthenics and forced marches, 10 miles, 5 miles, 20 miles. They couldn't believe it. And the fellows that had were shipped out from us, they were shipped, they were the 21s to 38-year-old. We were the 18s. After basic training, 13 weeks of basic training, we were all called in, and each one of us had an interview where did we feel like we were qualified for combat. We were given our steel helmets, no rifle, our steel helmet, and then we were shipped out for advanced training to Camp Swift, Texas. Now that was a bigger camp than Camp Wheeler. And we were there for 6 weeks. And after we shipped out from Camp Swift, Texas, we went to Camp Patrick, Virginia in September. We were shipped out from there. And we arrived at Oran, Africa, October the it's either October the 4th, October the 24th. It's one or the other. I can't remember. And we had mountain training. And Canistelle was the name of the place in Oran, Africa. And we it was full training too. It was hard training. And we were there for about 6 weeks. And then I was shipped from there by train to Bizerte, Africa. And we left Bizerte on a British ship. And I remember the captain of the ship came out and told us that you will now enter into the most bloody war, the bloodiest water that you've ever ridden in. Our chances of getting to where we're going is probably, he's real thin. But we went from there around Sicily into Naples. And we landed in Naples and stayed over for a couple of nights. And from there, we were shipped to the front lines, which was where the 45th Division was, and I entered as a replacement. And that was Venafro, Venefro, Venafro, Italy. And we were thick in the mountains. And the next morning we got up and I joined my company, Company F, and we went into the mountains. And on our way up, we were shelled, and I remember my sergeant grabbing me and threw me down to the ground. He says, "Now you hear that rattling and going on?" I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "That's shrapnel coming from those shells, so you want to be close to the ground as you can get." But when we got up into the mountains, and we were more or less had a winter line, and the Germans was over on the next mountain, and we were over on this one. And of course, you know, we wasn't there to stand still. We would take mountain after mountain after mountain. And the fighting was real. When you had to go up a mountain and he was looking down your throat, you can imagine what it is. Casualties were high. They used the donkey. The donkey brought the food up and the water. The water was brought up hot, but by the time it got to us, it was cool. Because if they brought it up cold, it would freeze, you know, and they couldn't get it out of the cans. But most of the time, the water in our canteens were frozen because it was so cold up there. And we stayed up there. As in December, I entered combat on December the 7th, 1943. So they really moved me along. I didn't have time to hardly drink a Coca-Cola. They were needing us bad. They were needing soldiers real bad, and replacements. And so they didn't. What clothing that was issued to me at Fort Jackson is exactly what I had on up there. We had no special shoes. We wore 2 or 3 pair of underwear, long handles, as you call them, to keep you warm. And we had the old overcoat and all that stuff. And the casualties were very high, frozen feet, you know, and stuff like frozen ears and stuff like that, because we didn't have any equipment. And your feet, just plain just regular old GI shoes, you know, is all we had, and leggings. So anyway, we got word that the French, when we stood out on the outpost, we couldn't stay but 15 minutes at a time because it was so cold. And our foxholes were dug inside into the mountain, not down, but into the mountain, sideways. And they issued us candles that we could take a candle and light it in the hole, you know, because we had a cover over the front, could keep it warm. And we had trouble with goats, you know, mountain goats would want to get in our hole, you know, and we had trouble with them. But we stayed there December the 7th until up in about January, I think it was the first week in January. Then we got word that the French First Army was going to relieve us. And so we were real happy over that. And we were relieved by the French First Army. And then we went back to Naples. And they told us that after we arrived at Naples, that we were going to have advanced training, amphibious landing training. And so we had that for about 2 weeks. And then they put us on a ship, not a ship, but flat bottom boats. I think they were LCIs or LC something. They were small. They'd hold about a platoon of soldiers. And then we went from there to Anzio. And we pulled into Anzio, invaded Anzio that morning. It must have been around 5 o'clock in the morning. And it was dark. And I remember when I came off the boat, I kind of hurt my back a little bit. Of course, we were loaded down. We had 3 days of rations, and that was K bars and K rations and ammunition, bandoliers, mortar shells, you name it. We were so loaded down because we had no reinforcements behind us. It was all going forward. And we went into the town, and we caught them by surprise. We caught them in bed, caught the Germans in the bed, civilians too, you know. But my job was more or less, we were forward soldiers. We moved. We didn't hang around flushing the chickens out of the coop. We were covering ground real fast. But anyway, we took Anzio with very little, having to fire very little. And we didn't, we just caught them by surprise and captured them. And we went from there on into, went on up, spent the night in barns and things like that where they told us to pitch tent, you know, but we were moving forward, so we went almost to Rome. As a matter of fact, I could see Rome. You know, Rome's in a hole. It goes down like that, you know. And we could see the top of the domes, you know, see it real good. But they stopped us and told us that we had to move back. So we moved back. Now, how far back, I don't know, but Anzio to Rome's about 38 miles, I was told. So we moved back quite a ways and dug in. And it was a few days that then we sent scouts out, patrols out, trying to find the Germans. There were no Germans. And then a German plane came over dropping leaflets. And that leaflet had a human skull, and crossbones on it. Said that we're going to kick you out in the sea. Well, they came close to it. That was to hell and back. You have to excuse me.
You take your time, sir.
When we contacted them, they came with tanks, Panzer, Tigers. Wasn't much you could do with the M1 rifle. But Captain Sparks had E Company, and he was slightly to the left of us, and his whole E Company was wiped out. I think he told me there was 45 of them went down a slough and made it back. I thought he was dead. I ran into him at a convention up at, well, I didn't run into him. I went to a POW, ex-American POW convention at Fort Bragg, and I registered, and that's how he got my name. And so we got to knowing each other, and he ended up as general. But I thought he had gotten killed on Anzio. But we held out for quite some time on Anzio. We got down to 7 men. And my position, we had 1 machine gunner, 1 BAR man, and the rest of them were riflemen. Had 1 sergeant, no lieutenant, no officers at all. They told us we had to hold our position at all costs. And my position was at a fork slough coming up this way, and Mussolini Canal went down this way. And I had a good shot of the creek, and I had a good shot of the hill across from me, and I had a good shot over this way. The boy that was in my foxhole, his name was Carr, C-A-R-R. And I've tried to find him, and I can't. I've tried to locate him, and I've just about given up on him. But he killed 21 Germans, and he was a replacement. He came in 2 or 3 days later and replaced the man that was with me, and of course he got it too. He didn't get killed. He got a German crawled up behind him and cut him down with a burp gun, and tore his jacket all up, split his neck back here. You could see the neck bone. You could see all that. And I patched him up pretty good with what I had and what he had, with his first aid kit and my first aid kit. And that afternoon, about 5 o'clock. Now this is when I was. This was about February the 18th. About February the 18th. He got. About 5 o'clock in the evening, and he was turning real chalky, lost a lot of blood. And I was just covered in blood all the way down myself. But anyway, he said he was going to try to make it back, and I helped him get out of the hole. That's the last I saw of him. And about, let's see, on January, we hit Anzio on January the 22nd of 1944, and I was captured February the 23rd of 1944. So it didn't last but about a month up there. The Germans, I was told by my sergeant, told me the German machine gun nest had broke our line and set up right in an old house, which you could see the old house. But this was snow, the ground was covered with snow, and you could hear the Germans up there talking, and you know, they talk loud, hoof everything out. And he told me to go up there, me and Carl, go up there and knock that machine gun out. And we went around, way around to the right of the hole, of my hole, around to the back and came in the back way. And we put 2 magazines, each magazine's 20 rounds. We put 40 rounds into their position. And I was about the distance, closer than the distance to those exit lights up yonder. I could see them real good. And so I really upset them. And we never got back to our foxhole. They laid down crossfire, and we couldn't cross that fire. And we jumped in a little gully like. It wasn't a foxhole, it was a gully like. And they had, the Germans, as paratroopers, they came in over from across the creek and everything, and came up the hill, and they had these little knee grenades, and they popped these little knee grenades and flares also, and they lit up the ground and everything. The first wave went by us. The second wave, there was 4 of them. They saw us. And that's when they got us. And then after they had to stay with us. And then the officer, the captain or whatever you want to call him, came up and says that, oh, you got some prisoners. Just plain English, just like that. And he said, my parents are in Chicago. He said, we're in the Marita bread business. And he said, I'll be back in a few minutes, and y'all take us back through the line to the Americans, you know, on the American side. He said, because you know the code. You know, we had a code that we went by. We never seen him anymore. But we stayed there. The next morning, we had to take the German wounded and pile them up down there along the creek bank. And then we had to carry them down the creek, Mussolini Canal. And it was about that deep, and it was nothing but ice. And the water, it was that deep in the water. It was a good 4.5 feet deep. And we had to carry them down the creek. And Little Joe, that's what we call the observation plane, stayed overhead. It was directing our artillery right in on us. And so we duck under the water and hold the stretchers over our head, you know, like that. But anyway, it was 5 kilometers we went down that creek to the German first aid station. And the old German guards, they were right along with us, you know. And when we got to the first aid station, that's the first time in my life I've ever seen Germans dead stacked up like cordwood. Well, they were stacked at least 8, 10 feet high and 50 feet long. The dead was stacked up, you know. But after we left, I don't remember too much. I think it was blanked out. I don't remember too much after that. I remember the next I remember was getting in line, you know, that they were going to take us and march us to Rome. And we were out marching in Rome, and it was nice road. The road was stone, made out of stone. And but anyway, we were strafed. I don't know how many times by P-47s. Killed a lot of us. A lot of the boys were killed. A lot of them was killed by long toms back there. That's a 90 millimeter counter that was shooting back there near the water. And a lot of them was killed. But anyway, the Germans took us to a studio. Later, we were told that it was called the Mussolini Studio, where just like Hollywood is. It was a big studio. They made film, produced film and all. And they were in the process of building a big ship. It was in the back of the studio. But anyway, they put us in the studio, and there were all different nationalities in there also. And our steel helmet was all we had. Drink out of, bathroom out of, everything. And we had no water to clean it either. But anyway, we all got sick, you know, dysentery and all stuff like that. And wasn't given anything to eat. We stayed there about 2 weeks, I believe it was. And I remember, I know that you just had standing room in there. It was awful. And the Germans they loved to do things for propaganda, you know. Walk out there and take bread and throw it in mud, you know, and let you wallow over it, you know, fighting for that bread. And they did that. But the Italian people women were nice to us when they marched us through Rome. And I remember going through, can't think of the Colosseum. Marching by the Coliseum, and the Italian women met us in little bags, you know, and gave us stuff to eat, cookies and all like that. But we walked from there, from Rome above Florence, and up to a little place called Laterina. Now, Italian map won't show Laterina, but there is a Laterina. I've seen a map of Italy, and it does not show Laterina, but there is a Laterina, I'll tell you that. The Germans had a camp there, a big one. And that's where the hardship really come in at. We were there I was missing in action about almost 5 months. And that was a transit camp. And they gave us nothing to eat, absolutely nothing. And we eat cabbage stalks, you know. Anything that we could get our hands on to eat. I hate to say it, but a cat and a dog were scarce as chicken teeth up in that part of the country. But now I never eat a cat or a dog. But I know some that did do it. We stood our dead up, draw their bread ration. We hold them until they got to swelling, so, you know, if they died, you know, we wouldn't report it to the Germans. still draw their bread ration. We stand them up because they had roll call every morning. 5 men to a kilo of bread, German bread, and that was bread made from sawdust and barley and stuff like that, you know. I have the recipe to that loaf of bread, but most of the bread that we got was marked 1935, stamped on the top 1935. But the Germans have they found a place where to bring old horse bones in there, maggots and all that stuff, turn us loose on that, you know. We dug a long tunnel, and got caught. And of course, you know, that makes hardship on you when they catch you. And they take it out on everybody. One escapes, take it out on everybody.